Ve studiu vyšší odborné školy publicistiky vítám člověka, který zasvětil svůj život charitě a je v ní velmi úspěšný, Magnuse MacFarlane-Barrowa. Hello Magnus, nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you too.
I know that you really started to help in at a young age, but what is your first memory of Africa? Because you really helped a lot of people in Africa.
First time I went to Africa was 1997, shows how old I am, to Liberia, West Africa. At that time they had a terrible civil war, so half the population of the country were in camps and displaced camps, and we were doing emergency feeding. And so it was a very difficult situation, but then the situation began to get better and the people began to go back to their villages in the rainforest, and we went with them over the years and we helped them begin their lives again. And I loved that, and beginning to understand their culture and their way of life in the villages.
A few years later, in 2002, it was like a big movement for you, or like a big step for your life. Mm-hmm. Can you describe it? What has happened?
Yeah, 2002 was a year of hunger, famine in southern Africa, and we were working in Malawi, and we were doing an emergency feeding project, taking food into villages. And while we were doing that, I met this family. The father of the family had just died, and the mother was also dying when I met her. And she had 6 children, and I began talking to her oldest child. He was called Edward, and he was 14 years of age. And at one point when I was talking to him, I asked him, what's your dream? What's your hope in life? And he said to me, I would like to have enough food to eat, and I would like to be able to go to school one day. And that was it. That was all of his ambition at 14 years of age. And it was really that conversation that led to the birth of this work, because it made us think about the fact that there are millions of children like Edward who miss school because of hunger, because they're working, because they're begging, doing whatever they need to do. And out of that came this idea of serving one meal every day to change that.
So you immediately knew that you were going to help?
The idea formed quite quickly, and then we had other meetings with people in those communities to share the idea and to ask them if they believed in it, because it was really important from us from the beginning that this would be owned by the local community more than it would be owned by us. But yeah, maybe 3 months after that conversation, we began serving the first meals.
And how difficult is it to, make it real?
In Malawi, where it began, in some ways it's quite straightforward, because there's no war there, there's no civil unrest, it's a peaceful country, and all the food that we provide, today we feed 1 million children there every day, and all the food that we provide is grown and produced in Malawi, which is how we like to do it, if possible. And the key again is the local ownership of the community. All the daily work of cooking and serving the meals is done by local volunteers.
The name, Mary's Meals, what does it mean?
So it's named after Mary, the mother of Jesus. Those of us who began this work are motivated by our Christian faith, but it's also a mission it's universal. It's open to anyone who wants to feed hungry children. So people of all different backgrounds and faiths are involved in this.
And did you expect it at the beginning, when you really started with this help, that it's going to be so big at one time?
No, I wouldn't have dared really to maybe think about these sorts of numbers that we're feeding now. Although at the same time, when we saw that this very simple thing worked, very quickly we did begin to have this vision that why wouldn't every child in the world be able to at least eat one meal every day?
2.5 million people or children, it's quite impressive.
It is. It's a wonderful thing, but in another way, it does just feel like we've just begun, because there are today 60 million children out of school because of hunger, maybe another 70 million who are in school but have no food at school. So there's so much more to do.
How did your family or friends, how did they react when you really introduced them this project?
In incredibly supportive ways. That's been our experience with this work, both in terms of my immediate family and friends just helping in all sorts of ways. They've done that all my life from the beginning when I got involved in this kind of work. But more broadly, when we began telling people about this simple thing that worked, so many more people began supporting.
So how does it work? right now? Like for example, for me, if I would like to help, how?
So one simple way that many people choose is to donate enough to feed a child for 1 year. And that's only 550 crown today on average. That's what it costs, which sounds like a make-up number, but it's true. And it's really possible because of all these volunteers, tens of thousands of volunteers who give their time freely. So people can help that way. I would say one of the most important ways, though, that people can help is simply to find ways to spread the word, to tell their friends, to maybe post something on social media, because that's the help that we're looking for. Because we find when people hear about Mary's Meals, very often they want to help. So our job a lot of the time is, how do we tell more people about this?
You already mentioned 550 Czech crowns per year.
Yeah.
And so which food is usual, or how do you prepare it for the children?
Yeah, so it varies from country to country because we want to buy what's locally available and what according to the taste of that culture. So in Malawi, as an example, it's something called lukuni pala, which is like a porridge.
Okay.
So it's made of their corn and soya, a small amount of sugar, and then it's fortified with vitamins and minerals. So it's simple, but very nutritious, and it's the staple. It's what people there like to eat.
And what's your goal for future, for Mary's Meals?
Well, the long-term goal is that vision, that every child in the world might at least eat one good meal every day in their place of education. So that's the long term. And then meanwhile, we just like to think about the next child waiting or the next school waiting. So every country in which we work today, we have a list of schools who are waiting for us.
And is there anything that you would like to tell to people?
I would just like to say to the people of the Czech Republic how incredible they are, because really I've just had an amazing experience here these last few days of not just being welcomed personally so warmly, but just to see how generous people are here. There's this amazing movement of support growing here very quickly in support of our work. And I'm just so grateful for that. And I just thank people, but also would like to encourage them to go forward.
So it's increasing every year or every day, like the help of the Czech Republic?
Very rapidly. Yeah, I think it might be our fastest. We have around the world 15 different organizations like the one here in the Czech Republic. And I think maybe the Czech Republic might be growing the fastest, certainly in the top 1, 2 or 3. Yeah.
I'm glad that I'm hearing it. And thank you for the interview. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you very much.